So I know we've already talked about, playing some of your first notes and playing from the heart, things like that. But now I'm actually going to reel it one step back. Now that we've established you can just play from your heart, you don't have to have a lot of musical theory and background and stuff. How do you actually play it? How do you blow into it? What do you do? You put the whole thing in your mouth? How's this go? So the natural temptation is to just put your lips over this whole thing. It can feel a little awkward and you're like, this flute's a little bit awkward to play. Or to say, hey, I want it to be more like other flutes. I wish this tapered to an end. Now, the reason that this is open is not just, for the aesthetics of it. The reason is because the way that it's played, which is this, you kind of, as if you're going to, kiss someone or kiss something, and it rests on your bottom lip, and your top lip goes inside of it. So just like this, right? And the reason for that is because you now have control over how much air you're going to be pushing into that flute. So you're able to close your mouth a little bit here and there and change how much air you're letting through the flute. That's really helpful when it comes to playing the second octave, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So just bottom lip here, top lip inside there. So you can hear some of the nuance I'm playing with. And a lot of that nuance is from the nuanced amount of air that's coming through, right? It's if I just go, hear how all the nuance is gone from it. Or if I were to go, again, it's kind of one volume. If I were to put it in my mouth like that, right, I'm a lot more limited in how much air, how much impact I have over how much air I'm blowing through. But if I put it like this, the actual hole that's blowing is, maybe that big, right? It's maybe, you can see like the size of a pea or something, right? But it's a little smaller, like a half round, like a half moon. And the reason I don't just make this a half moon sized hole is because there might be other times that you want to make it even smaller, or you might want to make it larger. And we might cover that stuff in the future when it comes to, adding some of that nuance to your playing. So I don't want you to be thinking about this too much as you play. The big takeaway from this is just, pouty lips or whatever, rest it on that bottom lip and tuck your top lip in. When you're first playing, don't think of, oh, maybe I should close my mouth here or whatever. All that is stuff that will become instinctual as you play more. But if you don't set yourself up right off the bat, if you have your mouth all the way around it or whatever, you've closed it off, you're just blowing through a little hole, you're going to lose a lot of the nuance around the capabilities that the instrument has. So that is why it is a big old open mouthpiece. So is anything different if you're using the Air Adaptor? It is, and I want to show you how to think of your playing when you're using the Air Adaptor so that you can get the most expression, the most nuance, and the most emotion into your playing. It comes down to this. You want to grab this, put it in your mouth, just blow into it, right? Again, it's kind of like you're thinking of it like that. I just blow into this thing and I play the note. It's going to play whatever note I have my hand on. Well, what you'll quickly find is that if you just do that, you're going to jump into that second octave really easily. So and you're wondering, how do I stay in that bottom octave? Well, this is where some of this nuance comes in. And so rather than just thinking of blowing, I want you to think of your breath coming from your diaphragm. So we talked before about breathing with your diaphragm and how that's going to help you not only control your breath, it's going to not just help you be able to blow longer, but it's going to be able to give you a lot more control over the strength that you're blowing at, over the amount of air that you're moving, because it's not just a matter of now I can blow at one speed longer. It's can you reel it back in and then let a little more, and then reel it in and let a little more. It's that control that you want. And when you think about playing with this, you don't want to think about blowing at all, really. Blowing is done with the cheeks and the mouth, right? But when I'm moving air through this tube with my breath, it's done with the diaphragm. Think of it more like an exhale. When you exhale, you aren't going, right? You're not blowing the air out. You're just exhaling. The diaphragm is what pushes that air up. And so if you think of your playing, especially through the air adapter, as if you are just exhaling, just breathing. Another part of it is variations in how you have your mouth. So I don't typically have it just sealed up tight the whole time. So instead, my lips are a little loose, and sometimes a little bit of air can escape. The reason I let a little of that pressure out is because I don't want it to be jumping into that second octave. I don't want to be just pushing a lot more air into it and then having it jump into that second octave. I just want to increase the volume of that note that I'm on. To recap, what we want to focus on is not blowing into this, but breathing into it, using our diaphragm to control our breath so that we have more variations in our highs and our lows. Then we want to think about how we hold it in our mouth, not sealed up tight, but as you go up in intensity of a note, breaking the lips just a little bit so that a little bit of that air can escape naturally, so you're able to increase the intensity without pushing it up an octave. So if you have an air adapter and you want to start practicing to get in that second octave, here is an exercise that I encourage you to do. So how do you get into the second octave when you are playing with the air adapter? Well, the way we talked about in the beginning was just to blow harder. Now, the problem with that is, one, the harder you blow, the sharper your note's going to be, and two, the louder your note's going to be. So if you are just blowing pretty hard to get that octave jump, you are going to lose a lot of the dynamics in your playing because that note is going to be a lot louder than that first octave. There's another way to do it, and instead of just blowing faster and harder, you are doing these little changes of pressure in your mouth by changing the shape of your mouth and where your tongue is. So first, put your tongue all the way up to the top. Close off the entire top of your mouth and try and blow. You can't, ideally, because you can seal your mouth off. Actually do that. It sounds silly, but try. Seal it off so that no air can get out. Like this. Now, try and open up just the tip of your tongue. If you can't be just a tip, try just the top half a little bit. Try and keep it mostly sealed, but let your tongue let a little bit of air out. What you're doing here is you're creating a second air chamber inside of your mouth. And so as you adjust the shape of your mouth and your tongue, you can speed up the air that's going into that second chamber. And when I say second chamber, you can be speeding up the air without having to blow a lot harder. And what you do with that is it gives you these added dynamics in the second octave. So and you're not just stuck with one big old blaring note, right? You can start to have those dynamics. So if you want to start playing the second octave with the air adapter, here is how I would approach it. You want to be learning the right way early because you don't want to be getting in the bad habit of just slamming on the volume to hit that second octave. So what I would encourage you to do is be practicing how to hit that with some subtlety, right? So how to hit it with still dynamics. And the way I would do that is by practicing jumping into that second octave as softly and as quietly as you can. Now, the way that you do that is you're going back to that closing off. And so you are just opening up, your your tongue just a little bit at the opening to get up into that second octave without having to blow really hard. So try it first just on the first note. And so what's happening again is I have that, not like not like that. It's like tiniest. Everything with the copper flute is about nuance. And I'm going to talk a lot about nuance with music, nuance with your playing. But with all flutes, but especially with the copper flute, and designed a lot of these parameters so that they can express these tiny little nuanced aspects of music that reflect the nuanced aspect of humanity that make life interesting. And the more nuance you can bring to your playing, the more interesting it will be, hands down, because that is what is so inspiring to people about art, about performance, about life, is a nuance, whether they can recognize it as that or whether they just subconsciously or gravitate towards it. So the more nuance that you can add to your playing, the more subtlety, the more tiny little glimmer of something different, the better. So that's what we're talking about here. And that's what I'm really encouraging you to do, is to learn early how to get into that second octave in a place that still allows you to add all this nuance to what you're going to do there. So if you just go like this, you're in that note, but is that note worth playing like that? You know, it's worth learning to play like that. Don't get yourself down. But later on, when you're trying to say something with what you're playing, right now you're in this big learning stage. Is that really what you want to say? And so a lot of this isn't about like, how should this be played? It's more about, is that really what you are wanting to say? There's a problem with any type of artistic expression, and that is when your vision exceeds your own abilities, because you will feel frustrated and discouraged, but understand that you can only feel that way because you recognize that there is this vision of what I want to say, what I want to be coming across, and I'm falling short of it. But that is what motivates you to get better. So if you are ever feeling that way, be encouraged, because it means you have vision. Not everyone has vision for themselves, for their own playing, for what it is they want to do. And I encourage you, if you feel like, wait, we're supposed to have vision, like I don't know if I have vision, that's okay too, because right now, focus your vision on just the expression, on just adding the expression of music into your life. And later on, you can focus your vision onto, again, that nuance of what it is I want to express. And the copper flute is there for you to take you from, blunt notes as loud as they can go to that nuanced, subdued, just the beauty that's within all the quiet, tiny little moments. And and that's what I hope to bring to this instrument. That's what I hope this instrument would bring to the world and bring to more people's playing. And that's what I want for you. So I hope that helps. And I'll see you in the next lesson.